allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Gary. All right. First item is to swear in a new member, Kay Applin.
Awesome. Well, Miss Kay Applin, welcome. If I can
Thank
have
you.
you stand up and raise your right hand and go ahead and read the oath in front of you.
I, Kay Applin, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of the Planning Commission of the City of Lake Jackson in the state of Texas, and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States and of this state, so help me God.
Thank you. And then you can sign that page and then the page behind it. Return it to me at the end of the
I
meeting.
will do that.
Thank you.
All right. Next item, approval of minutes. Do we have any issues with last minute?
No.
Approved as read. Visitors' comments. This is where anybody that's got something that's not on the agenda can speak to whatever they have, so we can't act on it. In general, if anybody comes up and speaks, be sure to state your name and address for the record. First item, discuss the clear cutting on the Wasatch property, Lakewood Manor Development, Susan Buell.
Mr. Chairman, if we could just wait on this change look, I mean, just put this at the very end or until she comes in there.
Okay.
I don't know why she's not here yet, so.
All right. We'll do that. All right. Next item, discuss and consider administrative and final review of Parkway Plaza site plan amendment filed on July the 6th, 2022.
Good afternoon. Doug Raisler with Baker & Lawson Engineers. This amendment is part of, let me make sure this thing's working here. Are we good? We're replatting, Rick Clark owns this area here. And at one time, the Ricochet property was separate from this tract. Well, this was Lot 3 right here, 3A, 3B. He is now replatting to make the Ricochet tract, that piece there, as Lot 3, and this piece here as Lot 2. Rick Clark owns this building, and this is his office building. He used to own this. I assume he's fixing to sell it, but so he split this out separate from this Lot 2 to sell it. So the replat is, originally this was platted as Lot 1. These two buildings were Lot 2. Rick's office was 3A and Ricochet's was 3B. So he's replatting this one to be 3 and these to be 2. Okay. So as part of that, we came back and this was all developed, was it 2004, Sal? I think that's 2006,
That
something
was
like
when it was replatted.
this whole area was platted in 2004, and it had a master site development plan that considered all of this, and a site landscape plan that considered all of this. So the official approved site development and site landscape is this whole area. The replat only affects these lots here. Okay. But to amend the whole thing, we included, what's the name of this restaurant? I forget.
It was Swamp Shack.
Swamp Shack, sorry. This is Lot 1, Swamp Shack's on that. So in this replat, this is a site development, this is all the parking. The original plat, they had an agreement for cross-access for all of these to share parking so that they could meet the parking requirements. With this replat, these lots here now have access to Mayhall over here. So they have public access for Lot 2. Lot 3 has access over here, and of course Lot 1 has this one down here. But we still have the cross-access agreement with all the parking to make sure that they can have enough parking to meet the requirements of the zoning ordinances and such.
The reason why we placed this particular item, the site plan, and following the landscaping plan was because the planning of the property is dependent on the site plan and on the landscape plan. That's the reason why we organize it that way. So you have to make approval of the site plan and the landscape plan before you can get approval to the replat.
Is that right? Okay.
Yes. All the planning is now, it was dependent on the site plan and landscape that was approved back in 2004 because it provides the parking counts for all those lots. So now, because they're dividing the property differently, we have to update that site plan to the now new conditions and make sure that everything else still holds and applies. So,
Okay.
Do we have to have enough parking and landscaping for the 3A separate?
well, no.
You don't have to do
The site
second?
plan will, the overall site plan, that's what you're, right now entertaining, will cover all the independent, all the individual lots. And that's something that they decided to do, and that because mortgage companies or finance companies somewhere down the line call us and tell, do they comply with all the requirements and regulations of the city? Well, they don't, but there is one that allows it to happen through a cross-sharing agreement, which is part of the ordinance. If there is that cross-sharing access, an agreement between all the lot owners, then, they do comply with all the requirements.
If the 3A, the building structure on 3A
This one?
was modified, would it then have to be separate, treated
You would-
separately?
No,
Okay.
they would have to
It's
come
still
here
part of the
and
master
still
plan.
make sure that whatever they put in there, assuming they put in, if you assume another building to go in there and have whatever use it is, we will have to take all that again and say, do they have now enough parking, even with with that, excess, or shared parking,
Even though they be separate owners?
even they be separate owners.
That's interesting.
It is, yeah, and it's been complicated because of that now. Originally, we weren't anticipating that situation would happen. We thought this was gonna be kept by one owner, the way it was presented at that time. But those things change, and that's the reason why we have to be very careful when we approve those things and make it known to those people that,
I was imagining, devil's advocate thing, if the owners got mad at each other and they put a fence along that line, it
We-
still wouldn't matter.
we have had situations similar to that, and that was when the, I forget the hardware company, not hardware company, the lumber company at where the Coast area is now, they had an agreement with the,
Simmons, no,
they
not
had an
Simmons.
agreement with
Yeah.
Tractor Supply,
Yeah.
that there was a cross sanitary sewer easement.
Uh-huh.
And somewhere along the line, they crossed. And then, and Tractor Supply had to supply their own separate, connection.
That was Roger Staubach's company.
That was Roger Staubach's.
Is that right?
Yeah. Oh, did Tractor Supply. But this has a recorded cross-access agreement in the courthouse, so they can't legally put a fence anywhere.
And it's part, and it's included in those documents.
It's on the document somewhere.
That's interesting, okay. Thank you.
So with the cross-access agreement, all the parking works out for the site landscape plan.
Jeff, anything?
I don't have anything, thank you.
Harry, anything else?
No.
Kay, any questions?
No.
Matthew?
I'm good to go, Locke.
Do we have a motion?
I moved approve for administrative and final review of the Parkway Plaza site plan amendment filed on July 6, 2022.
I second.
We have a motion, have a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next item, discuss and consider the same property landscape plan.
I'll let you present that one.
All right, well, this one was a little more difficult. While y'all were competing against Joey Chestnut, I was texting and emailing back and forth with Sal, trying to figure out what's the proper language to put on this thing. Each lot there's plenty of green space to meet city requirements. That's not an issue. Lot 2 and Lot 3 have the right amount of trees, okay, to meet the requirements. Lot 1 has 3 trees right here. They need, gosh, is it 7? I forget what it was. I think it's 7.
Lot 1, 5.
5?
For 5, yeah, what
Okay,
you have
okay.
on here.
Okay, and so Rick Clark is replatting these up here. He doesn't own this one here, okay? He sold it to the Swamp Shack, whoever that is. And their name's right there, I don't know what their names are. So, he doesn't have any control over these people, but they don't meet the tree requirements. Except, can you zoom into this area right here, Nelson? When they developed this, they planted, this is actually an oak tree right there. I think it's shown as a creepy myrtle, or crepe myrtle.
Jesus.
I apologize. And so this is actually an oak tree, and there's 3 crepe myrtles here. They're part of this, but they planted them in the wrong spot. So they're actually in the right-of-way of Abner Jackson. I would say it's their trees, but I know the rule is it's got to be on their property, but these aren't on their property. Okay, so that's where we are with this one, and that's what Sal and I kind of went back and forth trying to figure out what to do about it. And I guess it's going to be up to you guys, basically. This tract was approved in 2004. They had a landscape plan that was there in 2004, but maybe things have died and things have gone away. And what they have now is what we've shown.
We
And
were trying to give them the benefit of the doubt and say it was just mislocated during the planting of those original trees there. So, I was telling them, well, let's try to run by you and decide whether or not you would be lenient enough to also give that benefit of the doubt and count those trees as part of the 5 trees.
And I guess the other question is, if not, somebody has to go to that guy and say, you're not in compliance.
And therein lies the problem.
And Rick Clark,
Oh,
who's
there's
trying
the
to,
rub.
Rick who's trying to sell land, can't go tell somebody
Drew.
that he can't.
Drew was-
Hey,
It's
Drew, it is Drew.
It's Drew
That's
Ryder.
true.
Thank you very much, Drew Ryder.
And Becca.
And so, I mean, that's kind of where we're at. My opinion, these are close enough. It was just a mistake, whoever planted them. But that's, I'm just an engineer representing my client, hoping for the best.
Well,
So-
a couple of things there. One, yeah, it might give him some grace, but if the easement something has to happen, he needs to be put on notice that he's going to have to come into compliance, number one. 2, it's not the city's issue or planning commission's issue. And what I'm hearing from you is Mr. Clark doesn't want to communicate with Drew. I can't imagine why. Drew's one of the nicest people on
Well,
the face of the planet.
I don't know. Okay. I
But let's
understand.
just say this. I mean, Drew needs to be put on notice that if we give a, okay, wink and nod at this point in time, that doesn't mean wink and nod forever. He may be put in a position to have to replace something to come into compliance. I don't know if he's the one that planted those or somebody before he bought them.
No, I would assume, well,
Nobody
wasn't-
knows. We're all
I wasn't
assuming
the
here.
engineer back when this was done.
Right.
It was Ronald Walker, the
Yeah,
architect.
Ron
I mean, he was the one that presented the plan.
I mean, the business now, as you go by it, it looks fine, but I guess it's because trees are in the right of way. So you're asking us for guidance on whether or not we want to give an exception to this property because of lot number 1 having some things misplanted.
Pretty much.
And then if we do, we're gonna just do that and go, okay. And then if the easement, somebody has to go in the easement for the road or anything else, then that's when Mr. Ryder will be told,
Right.
Or if they die.
Well, yeah, I mean, and,
They could
well, I
die.
mean, but if they die, that
Ask
applies
HEB.
to everybody, you know. But it's real close.
well,
Horseshoes and hand grenades, my friend. Horseshoes and hand grenades.
I know.
the it's real close thing is not something I'm comfortable with,
Yes, sir, I understand.
because then the next time somebody comes around, they're gonna say, well, we're real close,
Setting a precedent.
and that's your standard. That's not our standard.
Right. I understand, totally. I understand.
Do you have anything else?
No, I mean, fundamentally, I don't have a problem with what they want to do. I just think we need to put in there some kind of notice to Drew and his business that we've given him grace now, but he needs to be aware that if something happens, he's going to have to plant
Yeah.
something on. And I don't know who's going to give him that notice, but I don't think it's the city's. It
Well,
may be.
They're in the room.
I can safely, I would say Rick can write him a letter. I mean, they're friends. I mean,
They're
it's
good
not,
friends.
Not a big
Everybody's-
thing, you
yeah.
know? And just let him know, hey, we surveyed this, and I don't know if Rick planted them or who planted them, but he said years ago, we just missed.
Well, it was Rick's restaurant, so.
Oh, it's his, originally it was his,
I would
originally,
think-
okay.
I would
So-
think the letter would have to come from the city, since they're on our land.
No, I mean, we can do that, there's nothing.
And just tell them their liability or acceptance.
Yes, we can do that, but we can also send it to both of them, so that both of them are aware of that situation.
I think do that.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I mean,
I mean, again, those are really nice crepe myrtles, and that's a nice oak tree there. You know, they're just in the wrong spot, you know, so.
Like some of us.
My wife keeps telling me I'm in the wrong spot.
I don't believe it.
Harry, anything else?
No.
Okay, anything? Matt?
I agree with Jeff, so outside of that.
Yeah, if you want to compose.
yeah, let me figure it out. I move to approve for administrative and final review the Parkway Plaza Landscape Plan Amendment filed on July 6, 2022, so long as the owners of Lot 1 and 2 are notified of the problem with the existing landscape and easements.
I second that.
We have a motion, we have a second, any more discussion?
Why lot 2 also?
Because that's Mr.
Well,
Clark's.
that's Clark's. And you might say Abner Jackson Parkway rather than an easement, because that's
Okay.
what it is, the right of way.
So, or something you need,
Or the Abner Jackson right-of-way.
Right.
we go over something you need to add?
No, I was answering.
We have a motion, we have a second, and, yeah, did you amend your motion?
Yes, to Abner Jackson right-of-way rather than easement.
All right, all in favor of the amended motion?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Let's go ahead and go through number 8, then discuss and consider administrative and final review for a replat of Parkway Plaza subdivision, same property.
Now you get to actually see the picture. North is up, y'all been looking at it sideways.
Mhm.
So, this is Ricochet's right here. And this is lot 1. And Ricochet, it has this little jog in it. This is all lot 2. You're just looking at it in a different direction. So the replat is basically this area, turning this lot 2 into this lot 2 and that one into that one.
Nothing.
Okay,
Party on, Wayne.
Sal, you got anything to add?
Yes, the only thing is that this is an amendment. It is defined as an amendment primarily because we are only moving the lot lines and we're not creating lots,
Right.
additional lots. So it falls under that definition of it, and as such, it goes to, as an amendment to you.
We have a motion.
I move to approve for administrative and final review of final replat amendment of Parkway Plaza subdivision lots 2 and 3, block 2 into amended lots 2 and 3 filed on July 6, 2022.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
We have a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you. Thank you. And I will say that Cindy and I did eat hot dogs on July 4th in honor of Joey Chestnut, but I only ate one, maybe 2/3.
Did you take down a protester while you were eating?
I should have.
That was awesome.
Thank you. Y'all have a good evening.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Be safe, brother.
Please be safe.
I'm actually driving to God's country now.
Bandera,
Ugh.
Well, I'm gonna go straight.
Oklahoma.
I'm gonna stop halfway.
All right.
Thank y'all.
Take care. Be safe.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Buell is here tonight already, so if you want to move your item back again into the fray.
Yes, sir.
Sure.
So back to item 5, discuss the clear cutting on Wesuch property, Lakewood Manor Development, Susan Buell. Ms. Buell, would you like to come forward?
Well, y'all sure got a lot done in 3 minutes. I'm sorry I was late.
Thanks for hanging around.
Yeah. I didn't know, was I supposed to prepare something? Last meeting, I asked you 2 questions, what the ordinance was for developers in terms of landscaping. And then I think I also asked how that's monitored or enforced. And I guess I have a third question tonight is how can we prevent this clear cutting? Because, you know, Lake Jackson was founded on the premise of conserving trees, and lately we've been clear cutting a lot of property, so.
Sal, can you give us educate us on all that?
Okay, and I guess addressing specifically this particular development, the Lakewood Manor, the ordinance requires that any, and there are two types of course development. One is commercial, and one is residential. On the residential side of things, we really don't require that they provide us a tree survey. And the tree survey has certain definition of what a tree survey, what type of trees are actually surveyed in, mapped in, and then tabulated and brought to the planners during the development process, during the first phases and eventually the ultimate, the finals. Where they, on the residential side, the city does not have any whatsoever, I guess, legs to stand on. If they want to take everything down, they can do so. But they have to go through that process before they get any permit to remove any of those trees. Primarily, most of the times, the development itself will either, on a residential, will either kill all the trees because they're gonna either raise the grades, raise the lots, etc., and kill almost all the trees there, and which is what happens in most cases. So that's the reason why they don't impose that type of restriction on residential areas. On commercial, though, it does have a requirement that they have to bring in, like I said, that survey, that tree survey that is going to be surveying the guide to the planners of what it is that they would like for, at least for them to attempt to say if there's any of those trees have any value as a, as a specimen tree, as a historic tree, or whatever it is. And that's what that's a chance that the planners have in order to have some control over whatever happens to those trees. In the case of the Lakewood Manor, they were considered as commercial. They were not considered as residential because it had that design of an apartment complex. And therefore it is a commercial, it's a private enterprise type of situation. So, that's when they came in here. We look, in this particular case, it was a little bit even more, had a little bit more complexity to it. It was a commercial zone type of condition, but because they wanted to do something very peculiar, very specific, different from what commercial would have allowed or an apartment would have allowed, they came in here for a PUD, Planned Unit Development Zone, that allows them to come in here and put before them what it is that they want to do and whether or not they are willing to approve that type of development to happen or not. They came in here with the requirement of the survey tree, and then we took them to task. The planners took them to task on the trees, because everyone knew that that area had some special meaning for a lot of the people here still that live in the area. And just going through it before it was all raised, there were some beautiful trees. At one time, there were beautiful trees. And so everyone sort of, got their guards up when they came in here concerning those trees there. But at the end of the day, it was, give us an arborist report about the expectancy or what is gonna happen under this type of development. They had to put in the tree survey and then overlay over that tree survey the proposed footprint development of what is gonna be there. And what they did, they plopped this particular overlay on top of this tree survey, and it showed what trees were gonna be left and what trees were gonna be taken down. So that's when the planners made, they made the call on whether or not there were approving this particular landscape plan, with the stipulations that that plan still met the requirements that the ordinance has as far as the number of trees and as far as the number of open areas, landscape areas, and also that the irrigation and the screening associated with the ordinance. The ordinance has all those conditions on landscaping for all these commercial developments. This is the process that they had to go through. Eventually, they approved the plan as it was presented with what you see up there right now. Now, what's gonna happen after all the construction is done? That's something that we need to look at and then make a decision. If we see that some of those trees didn't make it, that were supposed to stay, didn't make it, then they're gonna have to do some type of replacement. They're gonna have to come back, present a different landscape plan, then we'll again come back before them, and then they will have to either bless it or reject it or give them some other type of, option.
The other thing we've added here, I think this is the first one, that when a tree was gonna stay, the mayor had pointed out that it'd be good to put markers so that the builders knew. The guy and the bulldozers also communicated that. We lost some of that away without using that, so this one did show that example here.
And they did rope around those things with those yellow, those orange construction.
Unfortunately, quite a few of the larger trees, because I was on your side, quite a few of the larger trees had significant damage from previous hurricanes, and they've just never been manicured, so they were more of a liability than a pleasure of sitting there, because we would have had trees falling on buildings left and right. Some of the largest ones out there, I went out there when their professional was out there. You and me could have fit in the holes in the middle of some of those trees. And I knew that neighborhood real well as a child, and many people did, so I didn't want to see them go, but unfortunately, with the lack of care on for 12 years, give or take, since the tear down went down, unique people have abused the trees, animals have abused the trees, and it got to the point that some of the largest trees on that property were, unfortunately, a very large liability for anybody building around them, especially with how close they would have been to some of their structures. But
Well,
I
there
would've-
were about, I'm sorry.
no, I just wanted you to know there's a few guys on this council that arm wrestled with those guys for almost a year in here regarding those trees. It was some very shouting matches happened because of it.
Well, there were about 40 trees, and there are 3 standing. And they're not very,
We haven't gone back in there and taken another look at what is now there, but rest assured that, you know, before anything is approved, before any certificate of occupancy is issued, we will make sure that those trees make the count to the satisfaction of the planners and to the city, and with a new plan, you know, that replaces whatever's been lost.
They also were having to replace every tree taken down with a certain number of trees to be planted. So,
Of a certain
yeah,
gauge.
yeah, it wasn't just a whole bunch of 1-inch saplings going to be thrown out there and thrown to the wind. They were having to provide irrigation in certain setups. They're having to provide certain size trees. So it's something that you may not be able to sit there and have a picnic in our lifespan, but the next generation will.
Well,
well, I'm part of the Historical Association, but Alden Dow says it takes a year to construct a building, but 20 years to grow a tree. And,
well, Matt said, and Mayor Reinhardt was really fussing at him a lot. We all were.
Yeah. No.
And we asked, as one of our meetings, come back with an arborist. We want every tree, the health of it. And when we got the report, as Matt implemented, it was sad. And frankly, had somebody not come in, it would have been a danger for children and family members going around some of those trees. But part of the condition before they got our approval to prepare it for build was that they come back and any trees, and probably this may be the most stringent discussion we've had of any development since I've been on commission, was going to have to be replaced with certain size and quality trees. And they expressed a willingness to do so, and we appreciated that.
They even had a 5 or 8 year check plan, wasn't it something?
We did add,
Yeah, there was
comeback.
a comeback in so many
An
years post.
as-built, we call it, but it's as-grew.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things we've had with some of the newer things when they put in trees, is they just die and nothing gets happen. We got them to agree on evaluate it, I guess it was either 5 or 8 years, come back and do what's the status of your trees?
so are you saying that all those 40 trees were all diseased and,
Or in a footprint.
I don't know.
It may have been in the footprint of where the buildings were too.
well,
You've got to allow for that. You also have elevation changes where the buildings are brought up.
Yeah, there was,
And there's also an area that we had to have a detention pond so to catch all the water.
For flooding.
And this was another area that had to be clear cut. So that's in the back of the corner. That probably wasn't close to you, but all these things. There was a big tree that they did save, I think, but up near, can't remember that short road there, up north of
Pecan.
there.
pecan?
yeah.
Well, no,
Fern Court?
we're, pardon?
Fern Court?
Fern
Fern
Court,
Court,
that's
yeah.
right, yeah. There's a very big oak tree in there.
Well, I mean, this isn't on the agenda, but, I mean, that property behind the big Buc-ee's, I mean, it's the same clear cut.
They have,
Yeah.
That's what
They're-
started this fiasco
they're-
of us being quite.
their behinds are still burning from the last meeting we had with them because we gave them a plan that they did not follow. And they do not have a certificate of occupancy yet.
Well, that's sort of my other question is, how is it monitored before this happens? I mean,
The building officials, before they issue a certificate of occupancy, run through the whole property, and with that plan in hand, trying to identify those trees that were supposed to be protected, and those trees, and whatever other trees that were supposed to be planted, new trees are gonna be planted, and then come back and tells the engineering, they comply with these things, or maybe they're missing two, three trees, we withhold the certificate of occupancy until, that thing is complete properly.
Okay, I'm
Is
not
it-
quite sure I understand, but I mean, why, does someone monitor, while they're cutting down trees, the ones that are supposed to be cut and the ones that are not supposed to be cut? Is somebody following that?
We try to do that. We try to go in there and, when they come here to get a permit to start taking trees down, we make sure that they go out there and mark it appropriately, those trees that are gonna be coming down or gonna be staying, however they wanna paint them. And then and we have a discussion with the field superintendents and with whoever's gonna be doing the actual cutting, and explain to them what the situation is. Do we stay there during the process? No, we don't. No, we don't have personnel nor the time to be doing that.
But this 5-year grading
In that
is something
particular
we've never
case,
done
yeah,
before,
that
so that's a
particular
new
case,
I'm
ground.
sorry?
The plan for them to come back with their landscape plan after 5 years, we've never done that before, so this is a test case to see if that's also something, an improvement.
And also, we have another way of sort of keeping check on a certain landscape plan. For example, the project that just came here before the board, there was an existing landscape plan that was approved back then for what was there. Now, they came in here for another reason, either it's gonna be a replat of the property, either because they're gonna be putting additional buildings in there, modifying the existing building. Once they come in here and come in here for let's say, modification of the footprint of a building, they wanna expand, we make them come and do another site plan, another landscape plan. At that time, we ask them to give us an updated landscape plan that tells the story, that takes inventory of what has happened during that course of time. If it's, if they lost a lot of trees because of weather or hurricane problems, disease or anything, now they're gonna have to come back and replace the number of trees that have been lost. That's another method that we have.
Well, as much as I love crepe myrtles, they're just not as majestic and as
That's
these.
We're
these
replacing with a lot more than just crepe.
They are not, crepe myrtles are not an option under the plan we
No.
approved for replacements.
For weesach, you mean,
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
in the 2-foot ligustrum.
No,
No,
the
Augustins don't
Augustins
count. Yeah.
They don't
as
count.
a tree.
They
They
don't
kind of
count.
shrubs, screens, but that's about it.
Yeah, it's street screening.
Okay. So there's not a certain amount, like, for every tree you take down, you have to replace it with
Yes,
4,
there is.
or,
Yeah.
Yes, there
And
is.
We can
Yeah,
provide
is.
you, the
Yeah.
ordinance, Ms.
You
Bill.
have to replace it with more than you take down.
As a matter of fact,
Inch-based.
we'll make sure that you get a copy of the arborist report that we used at that particular location, so that you can see it on yourself, what it was that the arborist came back with. And also, we'll give you what the ordinance reads concerning the number of trees, the replacement number required, the diameter. You'll get a good handle on what it is that C is.
Some of our history, I think, is over near Roberts. There was a zone before us, between residents, and there was a strip of like 10 or 15 feet. They called a wilderness area, and the trees were supposed to be untouched. Well, after 20 years, trees fall down and such, and they're not being touched, and no one can touch them, so we get into a lot of trouble even when we keep the old trees at times, so.
I want you to know, we fought hard to try to make it work for this property,
that we
for the
said.
health of the property,
Yeah.
for the health of the neighborhood. And I think, and that's, I appreciate your getting her copy of not only the existing ordinance, but that arborist report, and you will kind of see the hoops. I don't even say, we laid down the gauntlet and they kept jumping over the hoops and
They
meeting
spent a lot of money.
ever increasing demands, to try to make it, I know it's a build site. It's not a finished product right now. I think if they follow what they agreed to do and what we will hold them to do, I think in the long run, it'll be a very beneficial improvement and provide needed housing in the city.
Yeah.
Could you give her a copy also of the landscape plan?
Yes.
She might see that and see what we,
We can give you also a tree list that has been approved by past commissions of what is a tree and what is not a tree. what
yes.
is- Involves a large tree definition, native trees. They've gone through the whole process.
For instance, when we built Family Fitness, the 3.5-acre campus, we had to take down 16 trees, many of which were decayed and had open holes. As we took those down, we had to plant 32 circumference-sized oaks and pecans. And we did that, and if you notice, they are all surviving on that property. And I think at some point in the next 10 years will be as large as many that we have in the city of Lake Jackson that are not prone to falling down or becoming decayed.
Thank you for
But-
carrying enough to come up.
We'll get back with you, Ms. Gill, and provide you all that. Whether you want it electronically or you want it hard copy, we can do either or.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for,
Thank you, Susan.
You're welcome.
thank you
We
for-
really appreciate you coming up and
Of
showing an
course.
interest in it, absolutely.
Well, I mean.
We just couldn't
it's-
talk about it last month until it was on the agenda.
Yeah. Is that gonna happen with the property behind Buc-ee's too?
Yes.
We've already.
29?
Yeah.
On 332?
No, the
No,
one
I'm
on,
talking,
The villas.
Plantation.
the
Drive.
villas off of, where they're putting in those apartments off of Plantation.
Next album.
Behind Bucky.
Yes.
Yeah. That's,
That's,
It
That's
also
behind
has
Buc-ee's,
a
yeah.
landscape plan, and the
Okay.
landscape plan is gonna be followed the way it was approved.
okay. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for,
well, you're quite welcome.
Susan, I hope you
Good to see
pick
you.
Seeing
up
me-
our frustration, because we're having to deal with the ordinance, and we're trying to, we're like you, we're all from around, most of them around here. We understand that trees is the one thing that distinguish Lake Jackson.
yeah.
That's the emblem. Unfortunately, the people that call themselves architects nowadays are not. It's a misuse of the term, because architects are supposed to work with their environment, right? If they don't do that, they just come, the easiest, cheapest thing is clear cut, put their little cookie cutter boxes on there, and they don't wanna work around anything.
And that is not a reflection over the development that you came here to discuss.
It is to some extent. I mean, they had their cookie cutter boxes, and they weren't willing to move them too much.
Well, it's interesting to see old pictures from the 1940s where residences were built, within the trees. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I know.
Well,
Yeah,
my prime example is that tree at the end of Weesatch at Oak Drive,
yeah,
in the curve.
yeah,
I mean, it survived. It's got road all around it.
yeah.
The biggest thing, these developers will come and say, oh, we're gonna build around it, it'll die anyway. I call BS on that,
Yeah.
'cause that tree's a good example of one that survived being.
I had to buy property around that,
Yeah.
to put that sign on. Cost me money.
Money well spent.
All right.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just hope that trees will continue to be important to Lake
They
Jackson.
are to us.
Well, as you saw from the earlier agenda items, it's something we grapple with every month.
Okay, thank you
All
very
right.
much. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, the last item, discuss and consider request from the DHK Development to allow for an additional 30-foot curb at OCD for right-in, right-out commercial drive into a 4.3 plus acre commercial parcel between the adjoining Kroger's Commercial Shopping Center and the Woodshore Community Drive.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for placing me on the agenda. I'm Doug Konopka, president of DHK Development. We developed, to date, what is the residential sections of Woodshore, not the Kroger's section, as you alluded to, but which is called Woodshore Marketplace. We sold the land for that. That was developed by another developer. Anyway, the reason I'm here this evening is because as you know, the property that we're talking about, the 4 acres, is entirely within the city of Clute, but our access is entirely dependent upon the city of Lake Jackson on Oyster Creek Drive. And before I go any further, I just want to state that I've got 3 guests here. First is Mayor of Clute, Calvin Shiflett, City Manager, CJ Snipes, and my civil engineer, Bobby Deeden. So if any of you have ever gotten a flat tire because you had a pothole in Clute or something like that, if you found that 1 or 2 potholes that exist, you could talk to those guys after the meeting. I'm kidding, but anyway, what I am is I'm requesting approval of a 30-foot wide access easement that will serve this 4.3 acre tract. I know you have this in your packet. If I can operate this simple thing. There's the 4.3 acres right there. Okay, and that's essentially it. I guess there's a second part of this, which is in your packet, which has to do with trees, continuing on the tree conversation, where, but I'll get into that in a second. So anyway, the 4.3 acre parcel, we expect that will be developed for 3 businesses. So it'll be subdivided for 3 businesses, but each of those businesses will utilize the same access to Oyster Creek Drive. It'll be an easement, so there won't be any later discussions or arguments between property owners. I mean, this will all be legalized and formalized and so forth. That gives you an idea right there what it is. Tracks 1, Tracks 2, and Tracks 3. Tract 1, we actually have under contract to a user right now. We do not have Tracks 2 or 3 under contract, and that line between Tracks 2 and 3 may end up, moving a little bit as we progress. That's number 3. I guess, should I just, Sal, what do you think? Just stop it right there for a discussion, or go into the trees, or what?
Well, I think the board will probably be asking you questions, and you just continue on and whatever it is.
Okay, well, let me go on then and address the trees right now. Oyster Creek Drive, I'll say this. Years ago, when my in-laws had a place in Surfside, we'd drive down to Surfside a lot, right? And that was before the freeway was completed. And I remember first being introduced to Clute, which of course I had no idea where Clute was because I never drove through Clute on the highway at that time. So one time I'm coming back to Houston and I literally got lost, and I end up on Old Angleton Road and then make the left turn to get onto what is Oyster Creek Drive. And I'm driving down the drive and I'm looking and saying, this is remarkable. I mean, this is really stunning, this drive. And frankly, it's one of the attributes that attracted me to the area, and hence we ended up buying the 200 acres, which is now Woodshore. So anyway, trees, they obviously are a big thing. They've already been discussed tonight. So what, and I do remember this, when the Kroger, the Woodshore Marketplace, was approved a number of years ago. And that had to come obviously in front of the board and in front of your city council. There is somebody, and I don't remember who the person was, but somebody on staff at the time said, well, what's in it for us as far as Lake Jackson goes? And I know that there's a lot of sharing of projects that has to be done, whether it's drainage, whether it's access, whatever it is, there's an awful lot of cooperation between the 2 cities. But that question kind of stayed in my mind, what's in it for us? So again, I thought back to the way I discovered the whole area and really admiring it because of Oyster Creek Drive. And I said, again, trees, the big, beautiful trees that we have today, future generation isn't going to have those unless we start replacing those trees. So the initial thought that I had, and what's in this packet, was an offer that I would plant working with Lake Jackson. And I thought maybe the Keep Lake Jackson Beautiful organization would be a great committee to start with. But I thought, let's plant 50 trees along the Oyster Creek Drive corridor between Dixie Drive and our eastern property line, almost to the Buc-ee's. The more, and that offer stands. But the more I've looked at it, I've thought, well, maybe if we can't fit those 50 trees, maybe there's other areas that we can go further to the west within the corridor that those trees could be planted. And in fact, maybe if we find that there's not a need for 50 trees today, maybe we took a portion of the funds that I'd be spending for those 50 trees and we create a fund so that in the future, those funds can be used to plant those trees. And again, I guess the way I look at it is we're all kind of in this together when it comes to Oyster Creek Drive, right? I mean, even though me through Clute is dependent upon it, like Jackson is there, the point is we're in it together. So that's an offer that stands. So what I wanted to say is it doesn't have to be 50 oak trees planted within that section. I'm willing to do that, but if we need to spread it a little bit, I'm willing to do that also. Okay, I think now maybe would be time for questions.
Yeah.
I think the way I view it, and I'm so glad to see our neighbors here, thanks for joining us. What's been done within Clute and by Clute for Woodshore, the Kroger, has been an enhancement, not just for Clute, but for Lake Jackson. I was talking with a colleague of mine, and I remember we never thought about Clute, Lake Jackson, Richwood, and all that growing up. We thought about Brazosport. I kind of missed that, personally. Maybe it's because I'm old, but I remember talking about the Brazosport community. As far as we are concerned, my personal opinion is it needs to be approved. Whatever happens within that is in the purview and under the control of our neighbors and their government. We don't have the right to enhance that. I love the idea of anything you can do to help anywhere in our community of Brazosport with trees. I don't think that is a contingent on my willingness to approve this cutout. But whatever you can do, it will enhance
That's right.
your business
That's right.
if you do those things.
That's right.
I don't think it should be a requirement, so I don't have any problem with it. That's all I have to say.
The only thing I'm concerned about is we're not going to cut the middle section of that boulevard.
Correct.
No, the aspect.
This is not a
So
cut.
No, it's not a
the
cut through.
people that come out and turn right, if they're going back to Lake Jackson, someplace they're going to have to U-turn, and I don't know what we're going to do with that.
The options are that at somewhere along there, they make a U-turn, or they end up turning right on Woodshore Crossing, which is the street immediately to the east, and they literally drive through the community and then come out onto Dixie Drive.
And that'd be more circuitous, but that's my only concern. Where is the city limits? Is it just right at the edge of that curb, or
It's right on the right of way.
Not in this
in
game.
the middle of the right of way, just like it is on Dixon?
No.
It's
It's
on the
It's
right
on
of
the
way.
southern edge. It's on the southern edge. So the entire right-of-way is in Lake Jackson.
Okay.
All of that's in
Right,
Lake Jackson.
that's right, okay. Just consistent with like Dixie. Very
Yes.
good. So that's my one comment.
I don't see a problem with it. U-turns can be problematic. I mean, it just depends on what vehicle you drive.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so that comes to my mind. However, there are there's ingress and egress from the subdivision.
That's right.
And you can easily come through Dixie and head that direction.
Sure.
Matt,
What about you, Locke?
I was gonna ask, go ahead, I've got a question.
I mean, I like the attitude towards working together for a better community, without a doubt, my friend. 50 trees is a lot of trees and stuff in that area. A lot of trees and stuff in that area.
The retailers may not be happy about that, actually, but in any event, that's why I'm suggesting.
Their
maybe-
tax money isn't coming to my city, so
That's
that's
right.
cool.
That's right.
You know, my biggest concern about it, I mean, the extension of that walkway is going to be nicer with trees being planted there. That is a nice feature. I don't know.
Well, and you, because you mentioned the walkway, I'll say this. The walkway will, as we develop, the walkway will be
Yeah,
continuing.
extends all the way.
Yes,
Yeah.
all the way.
Yeah, I saw the master plan
all
originally.
the way to the east.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
and it'll be a nice setup, nice continuing piece to go through there for everybody to do their jogging and whatnot, and transport on foot and bike.
Yeah, and one other thing I didn't mention, I should have, is in addition to the right-of-way, which could provide some opportunities, I mean, it's up to the city, but it could provide some opportunities for planting trees. We also insist on a 40-foot green, green setback is what it's called from Oyster Creek Drive. So if you go in front of the Kroger right now, which by the way, they've lost a few trees, but if you, yeah, here we go.
Yeah, no, it's
Right,
it's a nice
so,
setup.
so there's a 40-foot green setback, and that will continue all the way. So the trees that, it's my rule that the retailers or the folks that are developing the commercial establishments, we implement guidelines where they have to plant trees and do landscaping within the 40-foot green setback. So the trees that I'm talking about are in addition to that. So,
Got my support, bud.
thanks.
Does the traffic commission need to give any thought on this U-turn?
I discussed that with city manager, and I believe he is of the same opinion that he has to go before them.
Oh, there he is. Hey.
Yeah, really, I mean, just to give you a little bit of history, and the reason why we're bringing it to the planning commission is that when the original development was approved, the planning commission and city council approved all the access requirements onto Oyster Creek Drive and Dixie Drive. And so this is a veer, away from that original master plan. This is an additional curb cut that was not in part of the master plan. And so that's why we're bringing it to you first as your recommendation. I probably will bring it to then council, and they may send it to the traffic commission for their recommendation in regards to not the cut through, but is if there's some type of median cut in there for traffic for U-turns. But this will have to be approved by council because it's cutting through the parkway.
Yeah.
And so only council can approve that. But we thought we would take it here first for your recommendation and then bring it to council. And they may take it to the traffic commission to discuss any type of median improvements if they want those. We've looked at it. Mr. Canapa has brought several scenarios for cut-throughs, and all of them bring problems of some sort. There's no magic bullet there. So we've kind of punted so far and have only talked about the cut-through at this juncture.
And you're right, you brought the subject of, U-turns. Because one of the things that we've had problems with and complaints from is that the County Lake neighborhood where people use their street in order to make that return. And that's the only reason why we thought about bringing it up to the council.
Yeah, that wood shore cut across is going to get used as a U-turn. Is what's going to happen. And then we're going to have fender benders and all that wonderfulness right there. That's what's going to end up happening.
When I saw this initially, I assumed there would be a connection here to Kroger. So
That was required, well, it was part of the master plan that there'd be a connection there. And there was no curb cut on this portion of the property. So I guess at one time there was the thought that there would be a cross-access agreement there, but
I think the problem with Discount Tire being there is you're going to create more problems with the way a Discount Tire operates with all the cars they have there and stuff. Because that's what abuts that. And just getting through and past that's going to create as much danger.
Through that one
That's
going
Discount
right
Tire.
Well, there's a gap from it, yeah.
Those won't have access to each other.
No,
Yeah.
it doesn't. And if the city of Clute wants to address that, they certainly can. But originally, this 4-acre tract was part of the property
Right.
that the
Yeah.
developer of the Kroger was purchasing, right? And very, very, very late in the game, it was part of an option. They decided not to exercise that option and not to buy the property. So they did that after all the approvals, after everything was done, right? So we weren't interested in even developing it at the time for the past number of years. We felt let's really do as good of a job as we can on the residential before we start really working on the commercial. So this is where we are now. So
Yeah, I thought I remember the trucks from Kroger's were gonna come out this way, so. That may be faulty memory, or that may be the plan that got changed, so.
Well, I think what it is the trucks and all the heavier traffic, they still come out and they go this way. What Bobby, correct me if I'm wrong, what they're prohibited from doing is turning left and traveling west on Oyster Creek. Is
I'm
that
talking
correct?
about the trucks coming to Kroger's, I imagine they have to go back down Dixie.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. They go south on Dixie.
No, that's incorrect.
Oh, okay.
They are required to,
To go to the goal line.
they are required to come out and go north and out.
Go north and out, okay.
You can tell these boys don't get in the car very often to watch traffic.
Does that make it
Can you address that?
We
Because
nerds.
explain why
We just noticed
there
that.
can't be access right there.
Just been here all my
Dustin, can you zoom in on that? What's the deal with not having that connect?
Because when
Landowners.
the buyer, Cencor, who developed the commercial, the Kroger, the Woodshore Marketplace, that includes the Kroger and the other commercial, Discount Tire and so forth. When they purchased that, again, because this happened so late, I wasn't even thinking about needing cross-access agreements at the time. Because it just happened so late in the game. Frankly, I wasn't on the ball as much as I should have been. And so I'm in this situation. It would have been incumbent on me to go to them and say, I need cross-access from you. And I didn't do it at that time. I never thought that there would be an issue.
And they're
So-
not willing to play now, or what?
The way you stated that is correct. They're not willing to play now.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean we're not going to continue trying, but, I always try. It's like proposing to my wife about 20 times before she finally said yes. So I never give up, but now we don't have that agreement with them.
Does Clute have any sway on making that happen?
Yes, sir, we're in the process of, we facilitate,
Thank you.
my apologies. Yes, sir, we've attempted to facilitate the discussions between DHK and Cencor Weitzman. We've had some back channel discussions with Cencor Weitzman, and we've also been reviewing some potential legal action to kind of facilitate or prompt cross-access.
Okay.
What chance is that gonna,
I think there will be cross-access at some point. I
that
can't.
solves the U-turn problem if you can get that opened up.
It does. It would alleviate it. I would also say on Mr. Konopka's behalf, the tenants, the potential tenants that are currently there, even if there was cross-access or even if there was the ability to turn there, they want to have that frontage and the ability to come directly into and out of their property so they don't have to fight the traffic like they would at the Discount Tire or the other stores.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Did he identify himself well enough for you?
Yeah, it was CJ.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else?
No, sir.
Harry, anything else?
No.
Okay, anything else?
No.
Matt?
Is 30 feet wide enough?
Yes.
That's a standard street, right?
Yes,
A wide street.
That's standard.
The standard commercial?
It meets our
The
standard.
residential?
It meets our, well, as far as the right of way, our standard on a commercial driveway is 24.
24, okay.
All right. Anything else, Matt? That's a good point, because
So we couldn't
we
require
force
30
narrow
anyway
ones,
if it's a
and that causes
24-foot
traffic problems.
Yeah.
Clute Street.
All right. Do we have a motion?
Yes, I move to approve the request from DHK Development to allow for an additional 30-foot curb at Oyster Creek Drive for a right-in, right-out commercial drive into a 4.3 approximately acre commercial parcel between the adjoining Kroger's Commercial Shopping Center and the Woodshore Community Drive.
And I second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
I would like to add that DHK Development has been a very good partner for the city of Clute, and that I've been mayor of the city of Clute for 16 years, and that the relationship between Lake Jackson and Clute has been has done nothing but improve over those 16 years. It used to be non-existent. And I've worked very hard to to tear the wall down that was built between the two cities, and I think it works, and we appreciate y'all very much.
Well, thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Mayor. I
Calvin.
will tell you, that's been a big, it's been noticed, and that development has been, it's such an asset for Clute specifically, but for our entire area. And I thank the developers and the city for working with each other.
We appreciate all the help y'all give us.
A little bit of history. The 1941 map of Lake Jackson shows the Lake Jackson School where the Kroger's is. And it was a black school that I researched, and it ended up getting moved over on Plantation, never was, but I've talked to 2 students that went to it, so that's a very historical site. I've thought about putting a marker there, but I don't know if we can convince Kroger or not.
Anyway, thank you, guys.
On that property.
That's
I
a
don't
good
doubt
picture back
that.
there with you and
Yeah,
Modesto,
hell
all
of a
y'all
fun
sitting
one.
together. That's a good image.
Yeah, that is a very good image.
Yeah, there you go.
No, that is a very good image. Thank you, guys.
Come on, I'm ready to go to Calgary.
All right, signature documents. We got some documents, Sal?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Community interest.
She sees that,
Sal, we got some documents to sign?
Yes.
So you
Right
have the
there.
plat and the site plan, that's it.
And all of them are here.
Community
none
interest
of them there.
first?
He's gonna be putting that for signature somewhere.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank
All
you.
right, items of community interest.
Community
Jeff?
interest, there we go.
I don't have anything.
Harry,
I don't have anything.
guys, where you
I
bring
don't
up
have
anything
anything,
that, anybody, okay? Matthew?
I didn't bring my list, so next month you guys be ready.
Yes, sir.
We can't wait.
Anybody in staff have anything? Bunch of looking down.
Yeah.
We don't have Eddie here since he's the working member of the
Eddie's
staff.
not here.
Yeah.
Oh.
Dang, that's throwing some Molotov cocktails, these guys.
Sal, anything you need to add?
No, Mr. Woolman, do you have anything for planners? No. No? Okay.
Do we know when Harbor Freight's gonna open?
There, where is he? Okay, we've got somebody that can provide you all that.
There's the man with my Harbor Freight plan.
It looks good.
He's a handsome
No.
gentleman.
No, not
But they
him.
are actively working on
The
it.
site
Um,
looks good. Matthew.
They are actively
He
working
looks
on it, but
very nice
we don't
also.
have a identified date of their grand opening.
Could you give an update, just like you do council, on what is happening and not happening?
Is that on the agenda, Sal?
It is.
Is it?
This
Items
one,
of community interest.
items of community interest.
So we have approved building plans for Harmony Park. So that should be starting construction as soon as they choose to pick them up. We have construction
Let me just interject here on that item there.
Nope.
They have not submitted yet the plat on their properties that you hold the permit.
Yeah, so let me rephrase what I said. We have approved building plans for Harmony Park pending final plat approval. We have, construction is continuing out at the villas. They're gonna be getting to me a timeline for construction, as I do have concerns with some of the structures out there. Mainly in the fact that they're sitting there without roof framing on them,
Weathering.
which would help keep them up. The shopping center at 101 Winding Way is progressing. We're finishing up building 2 out there, which would include Marco's Pizza. We do not yet have a tenant that we know is going in between Family Dollar and Harbor Freight. I was asked that last night at City Council. And any other questions you might have about anything, I'd be happy to answer.
The La Madeline, is that what it is?
Yep.
I noticed they put a little wrought iron fence around it,
Mhm.
and I thought that was a sidewalk for us to get us across that parking lot.
On the La Madeline side, that is I mean, there's some parking along the frontage road there, but there's no designated access point.
We were trying to figure out how, they poured a little sidewalk right off of this way, and we were trying to get them in some continuity to the sidewalk over in front of Dow. And we were gonna say part of the way they're gonna have to walk in the parking lot, but,
We'll check that one tomorrow, because I don't know I haven't really kept up with the construction.
I don't know if it's a big deal or not, but I don't think there's any parking on that side.
That should be.
Okay. Yeah,
But
we'll
there is a
definitely
little
look into
black
that.
fence that's very neat, but it may be a problem.
Okay, that's not something that was on my purview, but we'll look into that tomorrow.
What else?
We have 16 mowing businesses coming into town with big shops. I'm just kidding.
I'm ready to win that battle, big dog. Don't worry. I'll take them one by
I don't have
one.
anything else.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sal, anything else?
No.
Just Elsie? Anna, when's our, next meeting?
Will be on Tuesday, August the 2nd.
Party on.
This meeting is
I like
adjourned.
sitting
Thank
back.
y'all.
Thank you, sir.
Festive, don't worry.
Bet.
I'll be
You
gone.
guys don't have too much fun for the rest of your